Under the blazing Colorado sun, the small town of Red Ridge baked in dust and silence. Outside a weathered saloon, a man named Douglas Reed leaned against a wooden rail, a bottle loose in his hand, his eyes dull from too much drink. Across the street, a dark brown mare stamped the ground, her coat shining even under layers of dust. Elias Walker, a widowed rancher with 3 young sons, stood watching her carefully. But his attention slowly shifted from the horse, to the man speaking. "That mare's worth more than anything I've got left," Douglas slurred. "But you need help at your ranch. Take the girl. She's young, works hard, reads, cooks, take her with the horse. Fair trade." Elias's jaw tightened. "I don't trade in people." Douglas laughed, harsh and hollow. "Call it what you want." Inside the general store, unaware of everything, Lillian Reed sat by the window quietly stitching a torn shirt. Sunlight touched her face, soft and calm, while outside her life was being weighed like property. Elias hesitated. He could walk away. He should walk away. But something inside him refused. If he left, someone worse wouldn't hesitate. When Douglas stumbled back toward the saloon, bragging loudly, Elias crossed the street. The mare was still tied exactly where she had been, reins loose against a post. The man hadn't even noticed. Moments later, Douglas reappeared, his shadow filling the doorway. "Pack your things," he barked. Lillian froze. "What? You're leaving?" She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She simply gathered what little she owned, 2 books, a small locket, and a worn bag, and stepped outside. Elias stood there, hat in hand. "Miss Reed." "I'm Elias Walker." She met his eyes, steady despite everything. "I understand." He shook his head slightly. "You're not bought. Not by me." The wind picked up, dust swirling between them. Somewhere behind them, coins lay forgotten in the dirt. And in that moment, something unseen began to change. By midday, the wagon rolled out of Red Ridge, leaving the town, and everything behind it, fading into silence. Lillian sat beside Elias, her back straight, hands folded tightly in her lap. The mare trotted steadily ahead, the only familiar thing in a life that had just shifted completely. "You can ride if you'd rather," Elias said quietly. "She's yours now," Lillian replied. He frowned. "Nobody owns anyone." The road stretched long and quiet. The wind carried the dry scent of sagebrush. They spoke little. That night, they stopped near a dry creek. Elias built a small fire while Lillian spread a blanket. He offered her food. She accepted with a small nod. When darkness settled, coyotes cried in the distance. Elias sat by the fire, staring into the flames. Lillian sat nearby with a book open, though she barely read a word. When it was time to sleep, she climbed into the wagon. Elias lay on the ground beside it, facing outward, keeping watch. At dawn, they reached his ranch. It wasn't grand. Just a simple wooden house, worn but standing strong. A fence repaired many times. Land stretching endlessly beyond. "It's not much," Elias said. "It's enough," Lillian answered softly. Inside, the house felt still, too still. 3 small beds stood in a room. A woman's bonnet hung untouched. "My wife built this with me," Elias said quietly. "She passed, after our youngest." Lillian nodded once. "I'm sorry." She set her bag down. "Should I make supper?" "If you're able." For the first time in years, the house began to feel less empty. That evening, 3 boys returned, Henry, aged 12, serious and guarded. Samuel, 9, curious and restless, and little Oliver, 6, shy and watchful. "This is Miss Lillian," Elias said. Henry crossed his arms. "We don't need help." Lillian met his gaze calmly. Good. Then we'll get along. Samuel stepped closer. Can you read? I can. And I can teach, if you ask politely. Oliver hid behind his father's leg. Lillian smiled gently. I don't bite. A small smile appeared. At supper, she served them first. Elias noticed. Later that night, she read aloud. One by one, the boys drifted closer. Weeks passed. The house changed. Lillian cooked, cleaned, repaired clothes, and slowly, quietly, brought life back into the home. Henry began helping without being asked. Samuel practiced reading beside her. Oliver followed her everywhere. One afternoon, Oliver tore his shirt and came to her in tears. She knelt beside him. I'm not your mother, she said softly. But I can still help. She fixed it in minutes. The boy hugged her tightly. She froze, then gently returned the embrace. That night, Elias stood in the doorway watching. You've done something I couldn't, he said. She looked up. What's that? Made this place feel alive again. He left before she could answer. But something had already begun to grow. Months passed, and the ranch began to change. Work became easier. Laughter returned. Even Elias found himself smiling again. One evening, he found Lillian in the barn, tending to the mare. You have a way with wounded things, he said. She smiled faintly. I've had practice. That night, he sat alone, realizing something he hadn't expected. He didn't just respect her. He needed her. Days later, they went into town together. People stared. Whispered. She was traded, someone said. Elias stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. She's the reason this ranch stands. Silence followed. Respect replaced whispers. Seasons changed. The ranch grew stronger. And so did what stood between them. One quiet evening, under a fading sky, Elias stood beside her. I don't know how to say this right, he admitted. But I know what I want. She waited. I want you here. Not as help, but as a choice. Her eyes softened. Yes, she said. Years later, the ranch thrived. Children laughed across the yard. The house was full, warm, alive. And above the barn, carved into old wood, were simple words. The horse that brought me everything. Because sometimes, what begins as a broken bargain becomes the life you were meant to find.